So we're just going to go on Google and look for some lawns. I just put in lawns up here to start. You could just start looking at lawns, and we're not going to get into copyright issues quite yet, but you want to think about it. You don't want to take an image that's right off the front page of another landscaping company or something that's really, recognizable. So we'll talk about copyright stuff later, but for now, we just want to find something that has a little variation of color. Obviously it's going to be green because we have grass, but we also want to, something that has a little bit of extra color in, a little browns, a little oranges, blues, anything that varies a little might be nice so that we could kind of use that color elsewhere. Now, you could just look for lawns and start looking for something. And remember, you're looking for a very wide image, and you're also looking for bigger images. So just for example, this one here, this is Central Park. Now, we probably wouldn't want to use that. But anyway, despite the fact it's 300 pixels, 346 pixels, so it's probably too small. We'd have to scale it up and it would probably look blurry. We'd probably want something, this is 600 pixels. That's not bad. This is 2,000 pixels. That would be perfect. I don't know what part of this we'd use. Again, we don't want to go too fancy with any of this or too commercial or anything. We want to make sure it kind of fits our audience. And I'll just grab something quickly here. And you also want to look for some like curves and we do have a lot of horizontal space and horizontal and vertical lines, but you may want to look for some curves for a little variation too. Something that has a little edging, a little curve edging there, that has a sidewalk or something. And here's one here. Maybe I'll just try this for now. Let's see if it fits. It's 1920 pixels, so it's certainly big enough. We could try to do a part of it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click on the large image, not on the thumbnail, but on the large image. I'm just going to do a copy image. And when I go to Photoshop, instead of just pasting, what I'm going to do is take my marquee tool and go up at the top and just kind of mark off an area that's going to be where my header photo is going to be. And you can see it's above this little area that's going to be the address bar. And I'm going to do something called Edit, Paste Special, Paste Into. And what that's going to do, it's going to make a layer mask. If I paste it in there, I'll hit OK. And what happens is, if you look over here in your layer palette, it creates a layer mask where that white reveals everything and black hides. And also what I'm going to be able to do is either click on my mask or click on my image. Now if I click on my image, I could grab it and move it around, and it'll only display within that mask. Now I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and you could see by my bounding box here that it's a very large image. So I'm going to scale it down. I'm going to hold shift, grab the corner, scale it down, obviously not smaller than the area it's in. I'll zoom in a little bit here, and I'll move it up. I don't want to focus on all this kind of stuff because it's a lawn care company, but maybe I'll focus on the lawn. I'll kind of move that up a little bit. I don't want to cut off any of that too much, but I'll try to make it a little bit smaller. And again, you could try a couple photos. You don't have to just settle on one. You could bring in a couple and try it. So maybe I'll try another one, see what works. But what I like about this is there's some nice little movement here. There's some angles. A nice place to kind of throw the logo in here. So I'm going to hit return, and I'll leave that in there for now. And maybe I'll try one more. I'll make my marquee again, and I'll go back to Google, and I'll look for another image. Okay, and I'm going to try this one here, because this has a little bit of color, a little bit of blues in here, and has a nice, I'm going to try and maybe use some of this middle part here. So I'm going to try this one, and I can see it's around 600 pixels. It's a little smaller, but I'm going to enlarge it a little bit. So I'll copy this one. I'll just do copy image. You don't have to download it. You could just copy it. And I'm going to go back to Photoshop, and I still have my marquee active, and I'm going to do Edit, Paste Special, Paste Into. And you can see it's smaller. It's not as wide as the area I have, so I'm going to have to make it larger. And again, you don't want to do something that's too much larger. And before I even OK it, I'll just move it around a little. And I'll just have a little bit of that tree drooping down there. I'll make it a little smaller, so maybe I could fit in a little red down here just for a little variation of color. A little red down in the corner, and this tree up at the top, if I could get that in. Make it a little bit smaller by holding shift. And that's good for now. I'm going to hit return. So now I have two options here, and you can see they both have layer masks, and I'd recommend naming all of your layers. Now I'm just going to I'm not sure what to call these, so I'll just call it Lawn 1 and Lawn 2 for now. But at least we're not using layer 1 and layer 2. So that's our start. We're using a layer mask, and these things are not linked right now. If you click in between them, they'll have a little kind of chain link, and that means they'll move together. But right now we want to be able to keep moving this separately. Now also, one thing to keep in mind, you might say, well, I guess now I don't need the layer mask. I could just crop it. But once we get text in there, you may want to nudge this up and down a little bit. So it's nice to use a layer mask so you have some flexibility later. Okay, what I'm also going to do is bring my logo up to the top. So I'll just drag it up in Photoshop. Now, I'm not sure where I want to put my logo. I'm not even sure what photo I want to use. There's that photo. And, maybe I'd want to bring that over here. That actually looks nice over here. This is obviously a little more fancier picture. This picture is a little more simple. You see a little more lawn there. So maybe I'll stick with this one for now. And I could use this on the right side. I could use this on the left side. I could use it on the right side. And I'm going to put it on the right side right now because there's kind of more of a heavier element here to kind of balance off. So there's more going on the left. So maybe I'll have a tagline kind of run in there. And I'm going to throw a tagline up here as well. So let me do that. Now I can't see that right now. So what I'm going to do is just use my arrow tool. I typed it with my text tool and I just clicked. I did not click and make a box. I just clicked and started typing. And I'm going to go over here to my character palette and I'm going to open that up. And first thing I'll do is I'll make the type white so it's a little easier to see. And I'm going to leave in Helvetica right now. And maybe I'll even, I'm just going to leave in Helvetica right now. We'll see how that goes before I start messing around with a lot of different fonts. If I look at my logo, I can see I almost have like a Futura type heavy font, and then there's a brush script in here. So I'm going to leave Helvetica right now and see what that looks like. I'll make it a little bigger. I can scroll horizontally to make this bigger. And, I'll start simple, and I can see now that I have some typing errors in here. So I'll fix that, serving all of your lawn care needs. And I might want to go a little bolder, only because there's some variation in the back. So I'll make it a little bolder, and then I could probably go smaller. Maybe I'll put this like 28 point. And that looks nice and clean. You don't want to do anything that's too fancy to start. And I'm going to leave it kind of in a darker area. And that looks fine for now. I'm just going to leave it like that for the time being. And that's all I need in my header right now. Now, one thing I want to point out, what we're going to do with our header, I have two photos, one I'm using, one I'm not, and I have my logo and I have some text. And one of the things we're going to do to help organize a little bit better is make layer folders. And there's two ways to do it. One, you could just click on I could just click on a folder and I could drag everything in here. I could drag these layers right on top of it and put them in here. I'm going to drag it out right now and get rid of this. And I'll show you the other method. The other method is shift clicking all the layers that you're going to want to put in a layer folder, and then go to layer and then just say group layers. You would think they would just group them so they'd move together, but actually what it does is it makes kind of a layer group. And they're in there. And what's nice is you could close this up and work on other layers, and it really keeps your layer area clean. So I'm going to double click on this and just call it header, because that's the area of my web page is the header. All these elements are going to be in the header. And it keeps them in this order too, with text on top, the logo, and then whatever images I have in there. So I'm going to stop right here, and then we'll start moving on to the shapes that kind of create the basic areas of our web comp.